All right. Whenever you're ready to kick this. Oh, are we already recording?
You're doing great, Joe. You're doing great.
I am a genius. Hello and welcome. This is another episode of Tech Karaoke, and today we are joined by Remi Phillippe. This is going to be an excellent episode. Remi and I go way back, which basically means he has a ton of material to clown me with. Hello, Remi. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Sabrina. So yeah, my name is Remi. I'm French, as you can hear from the accent, but I'm based in the US. I work for a stealth startup that works on basically adaptive access is what we're doing. That's about everything I'd say about the startup for now. So here you go, Joe.
Excellent. And Remi is also the owner of probably the only owner of a dog larger than me that I know.
Oh, she's here. She's sleeping there on the side as usual.
Oh, beautiful big Saint Bernard, right?
Yeah, exactly. As heavy as me.
And Sabrina, welcome. Kind of.
Hello. I am especially excited for today's episode. Remi, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a blast.
I'm extremely excited because not only do I not know anything about the content that Remi's brought for me to present, but I also know that anything I might know about the subject matter can't be said in a recorded conversation. So I'm completely clueless as to what we're about to dive into.
Excellent.
And with that, I guess we should dive into it. I don't know. I'm supposed to be in charge in here, but I'm not very good at anything I do. So today what we're going to be talking about is it's not access like it's 89. And you can use any 89 you want. It's not access like it's 1789. It's not access like it's 1989. And we are not going to party like it's 1999 during this episode for any reason under any circumstances. When we look at this, what are we talking about when we're saying it's not access like it's 89? Identity in 2020 is a slew of different disparate locks and different disparate systems creating and supporting and monitoring and managing those locks. It is a hodgepodge like this bridge, which has been replicated all over the world and is cheesy as hell, where you go lock a padlock on to profess your eternal love until the damn rail falls off or they have to be bolt cuttered off and then a bunch of more locks come on. But that's not the point. The point is, there's a bunch of disparate crap going on in identity in 2022. At least that's the point I'm going to make up because I don't know what I'm talking about.
At least you got a year good the second time. That's a good start.
Fair. I'll take it. So as they say in France, in the identity space, it is time for la revolution. And I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'm going to guess no.
Absolutely not.
100% incorrect. In fact, that's not even French.
We take it.
It's Norwegian, and you're an idiot.
I didn't say that. Not this time.
So we've got two types of user reaction. We've got the good ones that are complaining because they have been tired of this idea of extra factors. So think about it when you're logging into the different systems you use in your personal life and in your work life. There are a slew of different multi-factor things that you have to do in most cases, hopefully. Right now, you have to do in most cases. And depending on the system or what you're logging into, you may have to use different multi-factor tokens. It may be a text message. It may be a phone call. It may be a piece of software. It may be a piece of hardware. And you may have to use this multi-factor again and again and again. Well, what this is creating is annoyance and friction for the user. And this is a problem. It's a problem for two reasons. One, in general, when we're delivering IT, we don't want to annoy our users. In the old days, that was totally fine. Back in the 90s, when I got started in IT, we could say no to our users all day long, and it was okay. But now, when we say no or add friction, users begin to work to find ways to circumvent those tools, which means circumvent your security. We also have the bad ones, the approval losers, as Remi apparently likes to call them. And so these are the workarounders. These are the ones I just prefaced. These are the ones that are looking for a way to get around this security mechanism. So as you're adding friction, you're creating an environment that's incentivizing your users to work around your security mechanisms. And that's the worst possible place. You want to be primarily fighting the attacker threat enemy, not your internal users. So you want to avoid that friction. No more locks.
Not bad.
No more.
No, that's not how you say it. It's like, no more locks. No more locks. Come on, you're trained on that.
So what's the next idea? Should we go to smarter locks? The problem itself is not making more intelligent locks. It's the human element here when we're looking at it. As we create more intelligent locks, we're still talking about adding friction. What we really need to be focused on is the user in the aspect of access. What is that user doing? How are they doing it? And so we need to focus moving from how do we lock, how do we secure assets, to how do we properly identify and deliver that security to the user side of the spectrum. At least I'm guessing.
Sounds about right.
So how about we skip asking if we can avoid it? What we need to do is start looking at security and access, or access and authorization decisions, with the context that they need to be made in. And so when I talk about the context they need to be made in, today we mostly look at access as a all-in, all-out operation. Joe can access this SQL database because of this role. Well, Joe is not static. Joe changes employment status. Joe turns in 2 weeks notice, if you're lucky. Sometimes Joe just quits. Joe might go off and disappear for days on end.
Joe's in jail. Yeah.
I mean, not
never happened.
He's joined a cult. I don't know. Anything.
But when we look at this, users aren't static, and what they're doing isn't static. If we don't use me as the extreme examples, users go on PTO. They travel to environments that may or may not have different security concerns. They access data that may or may not have different security concerns depending on where they're accessing it. So think about identity information and the GDPR rules in Europe. So we need to have a lot of context to be able to make an access decision effectively. But we don't want to recreate this context. We don't want to have to build out a whole new series of tools to find this context. And luckily, this context is already available to us. So what we really need to start thinking about is, how do we take the existing context out of things like HR systems, travel systems, and the other systems that work within our environment to apply the correct context of what Joe's doing, what Joe's status is, where Joe is, what type of network is Joe on, to a security or access decision.
No one wants to know that, Joe. Sorry to tell you that. We don't want to know where you are. We certainly don't want to know what you're doing. So sorry.
There are federal rules against it, Remi. We're not allowed to know. That is confidential.
From a legality perspective, it's always best to not know anything about Joe. So, but when you're looking at access, you might want to look at that differently. You do want this context about your users, because this context helps you make a more intelligent and more granular security decision. And more importantly, if done right, it can reduce that user friction we talked about. If we make this context available to the access decision-making system through these existing information sources, then we don't have to bother the user with it. We can provide the context, make an authoritative decision based on that action in that context, and then deliver the authorization or deauthorization depending on all those factors. All of that can be transparent to the user, which can alleviate things like the idea of multi-factor anywhere, which might be rephrased as annoy me always.
Annoy me always. That's a good one. Are you going to trademark that one? Sorry, what's the usual? Make a website for that.
We need a little TM ding. So as an example, I've got this magic box, and inside this magic box, I've put all the fancy buzzwords. I'm AIing it. I'm MLing it. I Y2K compliant the thing. I am using nothing but free range, open source software sourced from local artists and developers inside this magic box. And
Did you live in California, Joe?
No, but I spent too much time in that state. So with this magic box, I can start to look at all of the different sides of this equation. Let's start with the target. On the target side, I can start to look at different information or metadata within those files. Is this confidential? Is this classified? Is this internal only? Does it contain personally identifiable information? You name it. I can utilize the information associated with that file, its directory structure, and the system it's in to understand the context of the target. I can then look at the flip side of that equation. What is trying to access this target? And when I'm looking at the flip side of the equation, we need to be really granular in what we think about when we're looking at this actor device application side. We have users, which we can think of as actors. We have machines or devices that make access requests, and those machines do that autonomously. So we need to think of those. And then we also need to think of the actual application being used on that device or machine. So we're really looking at the combination of who, on what, and through what application or service. So we take that along with the contextual information. We can use things like geolocation or global positioning systems. We can use the device proximity. Are you within proximity to some object that grants a different level of security? We can see if that device is properly managed and therefore theoretically secured to an acceptable level. We can look at the wireless network, the RF frequencies in the neighborhood, all sorts of contexts that are already available to many devices, machines, and applications, and correlate these together through our Magic Box AI ML fancy buzzword in order to make an extremely granular access decision. And the beauty of this can all be done transparently to the user. We're not prompting for more information. We're not sending another annoying multi-factor request. We're correlating all this context to make sure we need to make that decision and we can make it appropriately. And in fact, even in this case, that decision could be, we need to re-authenticate multi-factor in this particular case based on this particular context. So it's not a negation or replacement of multi-factor. It's a reduction in annoyance and friction. So I just talked about all this stuff and didn't realize the slide.
I knew you would do that, and I was like, oh, let's see how you're going to react to this one.
So now I'm going to artfully babble through showing how the sensitivity of the target is low, how we've got these particular pieces of contextual information, which have now been highlighted in green, things like geolocation, device proximity, all the things I happen to randomly mention already. And then we might have another build. We might not. We do not. So we are going to viva la revolution now. So now it is time to viva all the things because we have solved identity in a more interesting way. And one of the things I love about looking at security from this identity perspective is that a lot of what we do in the security world, even new technologies or next gen cutting edge things, are still really looking at an old moat and castle perimeter mechanism. So take a buzzword of the day with microsegmentation. Well, microsegmentation is not a bad thing. It may be a perfectly good piece of your security architecture. It's really just taking those moat and castle walls and shrinking them down to a micro or nano size. When we're looking at this from extremely granular access decisions, we're flipping security on its head to focus in a very granular way that goes out to the extreme edges, focusing on what is it trying to make the access, what it is accessing, and all of the context that would allow us to make that decision in an extremely intelligent and secure way. Start revolting. It's time.
Joe, like again, for those who don't know, Joe keeps saying that he was an engineer one day. No one believes him. You just proved that you were not an engineer.
No matter how long that beard is, Joe, we're not going to believe you.
No. So the interesting thing about being an engineer is it doesn't matter what title some clown gives you or how long your beard is, you still don't necessarily make the cut.
Exactly. It's very restrictive category, Joe. Very restrictive.
I'll take it. I think on my best day, I might have been an adequate marketeer, but that's a bit of a stretch.
An adequate marketeer. At least I always learn new words here. But
So Remi, I'm just, did I get it 100% right, or was it like 99 and some change?
Yeah, good 70%, maybe.
My bar is 30%. So if I hit 70%, we're at like 2.5 almost.
Good. Aim
Yeah,
low. That's wise.
exactly, aim low. And it's like, I love how he anchors very high, because he starts at 90, 100%, 99. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to ding him so bad to bring him down to 0.
Yeah. Look, I'm a jarhead still at heart. So aiming high is for the Air Force. That's not my job.
Well, I know Sabrina, that's where we grant.
Sabrina, how much did you learn during my extremely intelligent and intuitive session?
You know what? Well, what helped me learn is that you have to repeat it multiple times. So that actually worked out great for me. Remi, what did you think?
I mean, I don't know, French is absolutely terrible. Stick to English if you go to France. That's all I'd say.
That's what they always tell me in France.
Yeah, I can see why. You could offend a lot of people. By the way, so 1789 is actually a French Revolution, but obviously I wasn't expecting you to catch on that.
So in a French Revolution, did both sides surrender?
Yes, Joe, absolutely. After we cut the heads of everyone. Because that's how we do it. Did Joe just freeze in the most awkward position?
We have to leave this in. Oh, that's very funny. That was very funny.
Awesome.
And he didn't even hear us. That's the best thing.
No. You froze in a great way, Joe.
I don't know that I want to know.
Top notch.
Was it like mouth wide open, O-face type?
No, now I wish it was, but it was like a happy smile. I don't know, Remi, what would you say?
I don't believe you.
Well, it was kind of like an awkward Santa Claus, like with women with black beard, but
very jovial. Yeah.
Awkward Santa Claus. I like that. That's like, I feel like that could be an alternative rock band.
You could, yeah, but it would definitely
name of your first memoir, yeah.
Excellent. So, Remi, I think our audience would really like to know what the hell was actually supposed to be talked about. So, would you do us the kindness of taking us through your presentation?
Well, if you ask so nicely, definitely. So, we say access not in 89, so 1789, like the year of the French Revolution, but especially, obviously you don't watch TV a lot because you don't even notice the V for Vendetta logo. Huh? Did you see the movie at least, Joe? Please tell me you saw the movie.
I have seen the movie, but I was not piecing any of that together. My history is not the strongest.
The ironic piece of it actually happens in the UK. So you may guess that Tim will find that especially interesting on Saturday when we're going to play them on football.
Uh-huh.
So, as we were talking about all this access stuff, I think the identity in 2022, and yes, you're right, the bridge did fall apart. It actually fell off and actually took out all the locks that were there. And there are some people who added, and I just want to add that most people that actually put a lock there are the tourists, not the actual Parisians. I just want to highlight that there. So please keep your locks on your own bridges, so we can keep our bridges there. But I think the reality is that since as far as I can remember in IT, we started with mono user systems, single user systems, just a login, no password. That was fine. Then we added password, then password complexity, then password complexity with remembering all your previous passwords. Then we came in with the promise, more accurately, of the tokens. So we had those RSA tokens, and obviously you had 4 of them for different organizations. Then you also had the smart cards, which I remember a Microsoft admin. We're talking a while back. He was working on the Microsoft IT team. He had a stack of cards like that, of smart cards, because every single different area needed a different smart card. in there. So needless to say that the chances that you actually found the right card are pretty slim, or you put the name on the card of what it is, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the thing. But that's the reality. And then we moved on with multi-factor. It was great at the beginning. You would get one a day, and then you're getting one every 10 seconds, then one every access in there. And then what do? We just press on the button and there. But we've never made things more secure throughout the years. I mean, we keep just adding layers in there. So you create annoyance, a lot of annoyance, but you're not really making things better at any point. So I think we're at the point where users are literally raising, and they have enough of all this locking, those layers. And I do want to highlight, I'm not sure in which IT department you work, but I've still not seen lots of your IT departments actually happy about the users that are working for her. At least in my experience with big tech, but maybe you got better experience than I did. Red carpet, Joe?
Yeah, no, you don't often see, you still see a lot of security in the adversarial role.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, suck it up, guys, because that's what you have to do. It's security there, and that's what we hear a lot. And so, I mean, I like the complainers. We say I'm French, so that's completely normal. And by the way, the word is la révolution. Pronounced properly.
That's what
and at least
exactly the same. I don't know. I didn't see any difference.
No difference. So those ones are actually good when they complain, because at least they follow, they try to do something about it. They try to understand the access requests coming in and stuff like that. The problem that the approval losers, which are my favorite, which are just like, oh, there's a 2FA push, just press accept. Keep pressing accept. Don't even look where it comes from. And those ones are the more dangerous ones, because you don't know what they're doing. They tend to have higher permissions in quite a few cases, and they make their way through it. And I find those ones clearly the most dangerous ones. The other ones are a bit less dangerous. Well, they're very dangerous if they screw up, but they're not that dangerous in the overall. It's the workarounders, which have lots of great ideas on how to make sure that things can still work, even and reduce their friction. Those ones, examples, I mean, you can find as many as you want of those ones. And those ones are usually the kind of the smarter ones. So you create a smart lock. Great. That's a challenge. Let's solve the challenge. Let's make sure that I can defeat the smart lock there. And so there's always a good way. And I think my favorite one, the one on the right, it's actually a picture I took in the Dubai tram station on the ticket vending machine that actually had the key attached next to the lock there. I mean, it works. I'm sure no one has access issues on that one there. But then, like the RSA were the fantastic ones without a button, just put a camera on, or the ones. If you saw the ones with the Lego arms, you can create a Lego arm that just falls down and hits your phone on the accept of the MFA one. So this way, if you don't switch the accept deny, and it always works there. And I mean, the thing is just like that's just human. So we can go with the idea of saying, oh yeah, we're going to educate people better on security. I mean, it's not going to work better. I think, and the best analogy to that is kind of Facebook. I mean, I know you don't know what Facebook is, Joe, but so Facebook is a social network. They've had some privacy issue recently, and we'll just keep it like that.
Privacy issue always.
No, just say recently. Come on. Do you know what privacy means, Joe, by the way?
No. English is my second language. I don't have a first.
So yes, those privacy, like despite all the Cambridge Analytica stuff, and there you're like, don't share your info on Facebook because people are going to be able to use it against you. Oh, look, there's this new quiz to know what's your virtual age based on 5 dumb questions in there, and you have to share your profile. Just 100 million people subscribed. I think that's the only demo you need.
Yeah, and the questions kind of line up to what your bank asks for security. What was your mother's maiden name? What was the first street you grew up on? And who was your favorite teacher?
Exactly. So you can educate as much as you want people, as long as you have. If you give them like say a lollipop at the end and say, "Hey, if you want your lollipop, just answer those 3 questions," they'll give you anything. Especially if it doesn't concern them directly, i.e., their employer. There. So I think they say that we can't trust the input of a human. You can't trust that they do the right thing even after being trained. And as big as you grow your teams, like the bigger you get your teams to, you get to a point where obviously you can control everything and know if it's a legit or not access in there. It's just impossible.
Remi, I very much appreciate the plug for my upcoming book, The Things I've Done for a Lollipop.
You know what? I'm not sure they're going to sell that book on Amazon. It might not be rated properly. So that's, I think it's at the end, we're talking about things that are there for a long time context. And obviously, my control of English being pretty bad. There was supposed to be a comma, I guess, after the ask to make it 2 different pieces of the sentence. Obviously, that didn't work out there when you read it. So we should try to avoid asking the question is really the point to a user, if we can. And we can't always. It's not like 100%. There's a lot of data available right now. Just they work in islands. No one's shared with no one. That's the whole thing. It's my data. I keep it for myself. But there is a whole wealth of information that we could be using to better understand how people are accessing their accounts. And there's some interesting stuff around that. Ad tracking. Advertisement has been doing that online for the last 10 years. It's not like it's a brand new space completely where it's impossible to actually solve the problem. So we can actually accurately tell you on which website you are and put all the preferences in the store for you ahead of time. So clearly, sure, they just based on your profile and age profile and people similar to you, but like people similar to you, like having a long white beard with a streak of white in the middle and happening to have their hair in the back as well. I don't wear any glasses, but people like that. So they're still pretty good at that. So why can't we actually do that for authentication at the end and for authorization? Because same technology really we want to reuse there. And I can already hear people, "Oh, it's my privacy that you're invading." But don't forget, for a lollipop, you give all that anyway to Facebook. So I don't know if it's that big of a deal if you're actually giving it to your employer for their employer assets that they actually already track you anyway.
Yeah, my general rule is if you carry a cell phone and at least 1 customer loyalty card, don't talk to me about your privacy.
That's actually a very good rule. You mean, but I just caveat that, except if it's an iPhone, right, Joe?
No.
Oh, come on. So Joe is still thinking that that Apple is evil, but he has everything Google. But anyway. He doesn't even dare reply this time. Perfect. Mark, this time, Joe did not comment on something. That's right. An important day.
No, you hit a sore spot. I hate the fact that I utilize a Google product with my Android phone. I absolutely hate it. But I do not like the Apple ecosystem. So I don't have many choices.
There you go.
There's lots of options out there. But they might involve engineering, maybe.
Oh, yeah. See, that's not my strong suit. No. But if anybody is looking for a principal engineer, I can fill that role. I've done it.
And there it is.
You did. You had the title, you put like that. But anyway, I'll take Sabrina as a witness that for a moment you did not reply to something.
I saw it. It's out here first.
So if we come back to our topic in the context at the end, is I think that there's lots of things that we can get from an identity standpoint in the context of your work. I think there's a difference between your private life and what you do with your private assets, which website you go to, how you share your information, and so on. But at the end, when we are a customer of some companies, with banks or phone companies or whatever, I'd like to know that the support guy that's on the phone on the other side is using a secure laptop when he's looking up all my call history, for example, or all data that's on me. And I might be a bit dreamer in there, but at least I would hope that they expect that's the case. And so that's really how you can take this context. And once you have this context, then you can start making decisions based on the magic box. And maybe you don't call it like so in France, I think it's Quick, the fast food chain. The box that they use for kids, like Quick is like a McDonald's, but in I don't know if this still exists, but in Europe. And so I think it's them, but they're basically their Happy Meal is called the Magic Box.
Oh, I was not familiar.
No.
So you see, you haven't been in Europe enough, or you don't use fast food when you're in Europe, which might be a safe bet.
And honestly, when I do use fast food, I'm not typically in the kids' meals.
Oh, really? There's a toy, Joe.
Well, I mean, now that I know there's a toy, this is going to change, but who knew?
But yeah, so I find it pretty interesting that the kids' meal is actually what we put all our AML fancy stuff in there. But anyway, that tells you how advanced AI and ML is in that space, probably. So if you take all the context and the signals we can get around it, and we can actually understand where is home for you, where is office, what are your usual place of work across the environment, how often are you accessing resources, how are your colleagues accessing resources? I mean, like real engineers, right? Not directors or other stuff. So how are they accessing resources in there? And that allows to get a pretty good view of, are you doing something that you're supposed to be doing? Is that expected by your job? Are you working from home? Are you sharing your account with someone? That happens. But I mean, I don't know if you read at the beginning of the pandemic, there were some cases where people would actually outsource completely their job to lower cost areas. And so they would be full-on employee of a company, and like the token thing, they would put their camera facing the token, and then there would be someone from a different country that would actually be doing the work with the credentials of the actual person that was supposed to do the work. So it does happen. I mean, there was like if you Google it, there was quite a few instances of that were public there. So proof being, they had MFA, they had username, password complexity set, and they were still doing that. So did that make things better? I'll let you decide on that. But the context does allow you to actually capture this. If someone is, if you're based out of the US and someone is actually doing your work from, I don't know, Bangladesh, there might be something abnormal there. And depending on how regulated your environment is, that might be a big problem there. Imagine just like defense and you happen to be working from a different country. I don't know. I guess it depends if you're happy with that or not. But so all this context allows us to understand that in a much better way, just like advertisement does for you. Like when you're traveling, your ads change and you get like Air France ads, for example, which I'm sure you love this company, Joe. It's not American Airlines, but
anything but American Airlines, please.
That's what I thought. You can look at Joe's Twitter history of comments on American Airlines if you're bored. So yeah, all that stuff there allows us to basically better understand, make a decision. And there's a thing which is very interesting here, and that's one of the areas that we can use, for example, for low sensitivity thing. I'm sure you remember that is what Joe, when we were working in a big tech company, like if you wanted to look at the intranet to see the news of the day, you had to 2FA. Like this was literally nearly public information. Actually, it was classified public for most of it anyway. And you still needed to go and do that, even if you just want to get the link to jump somewhere else that happened to be on that page. Now, maybe this portal is low sensitivity, and if my GPS location says that I'm in a corporate office and my RF neighborhood tells me that the Apple TV in the room next door is actually the building 20 of company X, I get a pretty good view of the environment. So should I ask you for MFA in that case? Probably not. It's probably okay. You're not accessing high sensitivity material. We know pretty accurately where you are. So that's a case where there's this physical environment. So not only the software piece, but the physical environment is actually pretty useful there. And then as you go higher in sensitivity, you could request more. And this more could take the example of the distance between your laptop and your phone. It sounds dumb, but I mean, when is the last time you left your phone at home? Probably a long time ago. If you have a Tesla, you can't even drive your car without your phone. So at the end, I think that's you did what?
I did not know that.
So any modern cars can drive without a key, right? Or do you still
but
have,
I didn't know that you couldn't drive without your phone. That's a different statement.
I mean, it's practical because you only have one thing, but obviously, in our case, it's very useful because in the case of identity, I mean, if you are not next to your laptop, I mean, it's very pretty obvious there. So all this data allows us to make better decisions. If you take the outsourcers, we call it like that, of their jobs, in that case, I mean, are you going to ship your phone to a remote country for someone to actually work? Pretty unlikely. Are you going to leave your phone at home and give a remote session to someone on your device at home? Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of someone outsourcing your job. So all those things allow to make decisions. And so you might be accessing something highly sensitive, but you still might not need to get another MFA, depending on all this context here. So it allows just so much flexibility that you could imagine in a perfect world. Obviously very imperfect, but in a perfect world, you could expect like 1 week without a single MFA because you're working from home and that's where you're doing 90% of your stuff and your patterns are very predictable and you're a modern employee. So there isn't anything off in your behavior there. So all those is what actually helps make those kind of decision. And when we say Vive la Révolution, it's really about, well, we have all this at hand now. So let's just use that and push that a bit farther on the side of the user. I mean, not necessarily inside of advertisements, and just use it to actually make our life simpler rather than just continue with yet another MFA. And to prove the point, I mean, I don't know for you, but I have a full page of MFA apps on my phone.
So this is really interesting. So first, we're going to want the audience to vote who spoke French better. I know it was me, but we do want you to weigh in there. Second, there's a couple of really interesting things. First, I love the analogy you drew to the rapid real-time correlation that happens from a marketing and data collection perspective, because the point you made was great. It's this is tech that exists. This is doable things. It's just applying that same technology to a new use case to both reduce the user friction of security and secure the environment more tightly.
And what's interesting in that case, I know people are like, the privacy is always a big concern. As you said, I want to put the fidelity cards or stuff like loyalty cards, sorry, in English. But at the end, it's actually more not secure. It's actually more private that your company understands how you're accessing resources, because their world is restricted to what they can see, and what they can see is the business apps. They're not going to look at your Facebook profile to see what you're doing. So, I mean, I think it's much less restrictive and much less invasive than the ad tracking space.
Agreed. And I think it's it should be a basic understanding that while you're accessing those apps of your employer, that they have some some pretty extensive rights as to how they track that access. The other thing the other thing that was really interesting to me is I just thinking about as this black box in theory starts collecting and correlating the contextual information around access and authorization transactions, I have to imagine that it's immediately going to start to register some really interesting insights, that you're immediately going to start to see some behaviors that are unexpected, that you didn't know that was happening. And they may be good or bad, but it's going to start to provide you with some real information into what's actually going on within your environment from an identity perspective.
Exactly. And it's that's not something that you wouldn't think that you would see very easily, because at the end, it's a graph, how you're accessing resources. I mean, from an engineering standpoint, Joe, sorry. But
what's a graph?
Okay, let's come back. So there's dots with lines in between the dots.
I know those words.
You could do that. Yeah.
So that's how I explain it to my daughter, Joe. So you're pretty much on point. So
a bit brighter than I am, though. So I'm lucky I got it.
Exactly. So if you think of the graph problem, you can visualize a graph very easily. That's something that human is actually very good at, is recognizing even just patterns. If I show you pictures and dots on pictures and positioning, you're going to come out with some form of observation. A wrong, right doesn't really matter, but you're going to have an observation on it. So understanding how this access comes through, seeing it in a way that doesn't necessarily represent Bob accessed A, but to see, for example, well, all the users from HR are accessing these sets of application, and then there's this one line from someone in HR going to another set of application. Those are things that are very easy, and actually Netflix did a whole thing on the engineering side, on intuitive engineering, which allows you to actually, from just what you see, get a sense of, okay, well, that's off, and I should probably look a bit farther in there. So I'm not saying you should have someone staring at the screen all day long and so on, but I mean, just having a look now and then is not going to hurt.
Yeah. I mean, you could instantly identify major emergencies like Joe's accessing GitHub.
That major, I like even going see critical, and we should shut the company down when that happens.
It's shut down. It's chapter 11. It's time to go. All right. So Sabrina, Remi is an old friend, so please break the news that I did it better to him softly.
You know, Joe, as you were kind of going through the conversation and debriefing, if you will, you answered the question for me. I mean, for us all, didn't you? I mean, I will give you, yeah, it's good. I will give him I give Joe some credit. You know, there were a couple of things that you did say correctly. You got more than a couple of things wrong, but that's okay. You know, Joe, you're growing. Everyone's at their own pace, you know. But I mean, hands down, I got to give this one to Remi. Sorry, Joe. Better luck next time, but yeah.
You know, they say fail up, but I don't seem to get the up part right. That's where I'm missing it.
I mean,
nailing the
like
fail,
that,
though. What'd you
So-
say, Remy?
I was like when you fail, I mean, you can fail up just like that. You don't need to fail like that. So Joe, at least it wasn't like that, right? So it was kind of somewhere, maybe here.
Excellent. So Remi, I'm guessing that a lot of our audience is going to have some questions for you. Would love to get in touch with you and kind of understand better what you're doing. And from my understanding, they in kind of one-on-one sessions, they can get a better understanding of what you may be up to. So is it all right if they reach out to us and we connect them with you and your team there?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk to other people on that, and even just talking about technology as a whole. I mean, I'm never opposed to a good debate on technology.
No. I mean, I get to participate in the debates, not necessarily more as a fly on the wall than an intelligent participant, though. Excellent. Well, Sabrina, thanks for nothing as always. And Remi, thanks for taking the time out of your day. I know you and the team are extremely busy, and so thank you very much for being a guest on the show. It was excellent information. I think our audience can love it.
It was a pleasure anytime, Joe, and thank you, Sabrina.
Nice to see you.